Last class, you were introduced to the cell theory and the two types of cells, prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Can you remember anything about these two types of cells? How are they similar? How are they different? There are 4 key similarities for each of these types of cells. That all cells have DNA, all cells are filled with cytoplasm, all cells have a cell membrane, and all cells have an organelle called a ribosome, those tiny little dots that make protein. But how are they different? If you remember, we like to say pro is no nucleus. Prokaryotic cells do not have a nucleus, whereas eukaryotic cells, you do have a nucleus. That is the primary difference. So, now that we've learned about the difference between the two types of cells, we're going to go more in depth today on eukaryotic cells. Plant and animal cells are eukaryotic cells. You do have a nucleus. Even though both these cells have a nucleus, they are structured a little bit differently, as we're going to learn today. So, what are organelles? Organelles are to cells kind of like organs are to our body. They are the internal structures that help carry out the functions of a cell. Think of the organs in your body. You have a brain. The job of the brain is to do what? To think and instruct the body. You have a heart, and the job of the heart is to pump blood. You have lungs, and the job of the lungs is to breathe. There are similar structures in each one of your cells, telling the cell, getting information from the brain, telling it what to do. So, let's start with the organelles that are found in all cells: the cell membrane, the ribosome, and the cytoplasm. The cell membrane provides support and protection for the cell. It surrounds the cell and controls what enters and exits. We like to compare the cell membrane to like the doors or the walls of the cell, since it surrounds and protects it. But it also controls who can come in and out, like a door. The second organelle found in all cells is the ribosome. The ribosome, think ribs, all right? Ribs are protein. The ribosome are those tiny little dots that make protein. I personally like to think of them as the pimples of the cell because all cells have them, just like all people get pimples. The ribosome can be found either floating off on its own, or it can sometimes be found attached to other organelles, like the endoplasmic reticulum, which we'll talk about later in this video. The third and final organelle that is found in all cells is the cytoplasm. That is our jelly filling inside the cell. It's kind of what makes it a pool. All the other organelles are floating around on top of, or kind of inside of, the cytoplasm. So, let's recall, what 3 organelles are found in all cells? You should have answered cell membrane, cytoplasm, and ribosome. Those are the 3 organelles found in all cells. These are 3 organelles that are also found not just in eukaryotic cells, but prokaryotic cells as well. Think about the comparisons we made between these organelles and other structures. Which one of these organelles holds stuff, like a pool? Which one of these organelles makes protein, like ribs? Which one of these organelles controls what goes in and out, like a door? So, what are organelles that are found in all eukaryotic cells, like plants and animals, but are not found in prokaryotic cells? Well, the big one, you do have a nucleus. The nucleus is the control center of the cell. It's where DNA is stored. Because this is where the DNA can be found, it is the control center of the cell. It sends out instructions to all the other organelles, telling it what to do and when. The mighty mitochondria. You've probably heard about this in middle school if you went to middle school in Virginia. The mighty mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. That's because it's responsible for making energy. Specifically, it makes energy through a process called cellular respiration. Let's remember how we compared the nucleus and mitochondria to functions in our bodies. Which one of these organelles has to do with energy? Which of these organelles is usually compared to a brain? Organelles found in all eukaryotes, plants, and animals also includes the endoplasmic reticulum, or shortly known as ER. There are two ERs, a rough ER that's covered in ribosomes, making it bumpy, and a smooth ER that's not covered in ribosomes, giving it its smooth texture. The ER, or endoplasmic reticulum, is responsible for transporting material around the cell. It functions a lot like a highway. The Golgi apparatus looks very similar to the smooth ER. It is a layered, floppy organelle, though it is not covered in ribosomes like the rough ER. It also has a similar function to the endoplasmic reticulum, which is why it's commonly misconstrued as the ER. The Golgi apparatus is found further away from the nucleus than the ER. Its job is very similar to Amazon or UPS. Its job is to package and ship the things that arrives at the Golgi. So the endoplasmic reticulum will send something off to the Golgi. Once the Golgi receives it, packages up, puts on a pretty bow, and sends it where it needs to go. So, how can I tell the difference between the rough ER, or ER in general, and the Golgi? The Golgi is not attached to the nucleus. It's found further off in the body of the the cell. The endoplasmic reticulum is found nuzzled up right next to the nucleus. Think about how we compare the functions of these. While they have similar functions, there is a distinct difference. Which one of these organelles is responsible for packaging and sending? Which one of these organelles is responsible just for the transportation? Now, plant and animal cells have all of those organelles in common. However, there are certain organelles that are only found in plants. One of these organelles is called the chloroplast, or the green organelle. It's green because this is the organelle that absorbs sunlight in order to make food. The process of making food is called photosynthesis. In color pictures, it's really easy to distinguish between a plant and an animal cell simply based off the color of the cell. Plant cells are green because of the chloroplast. The second thing that will distinguish a plant cell is its flat walls. Plant cells on the outside of the cell membrane have a cell wall. It grants additional support to the cell. This cell wall is made of cellulose. Inside of the plant cell is a large swimming pool called a vacuole. This vacuole not only stores water, but it can also store food and waste. Plants have a very large vacuole because they need to be able to store water for when there's a drought. They don't always have access to water and food. When the vacuole is full, the plant is really well supported. If plants run out of water, the vacuole empties and the plant will begin to wilt. Compare these three plant organelles and their functions. Which one of these organelles functions like a vacuum? which one of these organelles does photosynthesis? And which one of these organelles is like a brick wall? There's one organelle that is only found in animal cells. This is the lysosome. If you see lice at the beginning, it might make you think of Lysol. The lysosome is a sac of enzymes whose responsibility it is to clean up the cell, kind of like how Lysol is used for cleaning. So, let's sum it up. Eukaryotes can be animals or plants. Animal cells are going to have lysosomes and small vacuoles, whereas plant cells are going to have cell walls, chloroplasts, and large vacuoles. Both plant and animals have a nucleus, an endoplasmic reticulum, a Golgi apparatus, and a mitochondria. All cells have the 4 large words at the top. All cells have DNA, ribosomes, cytoplasm, and cell membrane.